Everybody was wondering, what's wrong with this guy? He doesn't want to work, he's become so lazy, he's just sitting in the basement. I could feel we were at a time where the PD and the bar phone was going to come together. So I decided, let's go down to the basement and let's see what I can do with this technology. My mother-in-law was staying with us. I was married, I had a 1-year-old son. And so she would give it to me pretty much every day, right? So I said, okay, soft object and technology. So Soft Object Technologies Inc. So that was the original name of the company. The lady on the phone says, can I speak to sales? I said, absolutely. And I put the phone down on the thing and I picked it up. Hello, sales.
Nailed it, nailed it. Now, for a SOTI TV first, we've decided to film live on location with all of you here. And what better way than with the man who started it all. Please welcome to the stage, Carl Rodrigues. Yeah. Welcome, Carl. Big seat. Whew. I gotta say, Carl, quite a party last night. Thoughts, stories?
I don't know what. that goes to show what a great party was. Yeah, but I don't know what happens on fun night stays a fun night, I guess.
Well, apparently I wasn't even drinking vodka martinis, so I'm gonna go with you on this one. I think some of those stories are best left unshared. Carl, I gotta say, over the last few days, talking to our customers, our partners last night, we talked about the early SOTI days, and I always think to the stories that you tell our internal teams and at all of our SOTI live events, and it just really got me thinking, we have all this amazing knowledge of how you got started, how SOTI came to be, but I was thinking our customers and our partners probably haven't heard a lot of those stories, right? So I would love for you to be able to chat to them about the early days. So how about we start at the beginning?
Okay. long ways back.
It's a young man right there.
Oh, wow. Actually, this is before even SOTI started, so we don't actually have a picture. I never knew when I went to the basement anything would come of that, but this is a little before when I was working for another company. But the way it started is way back in 1995, I was going to accept a contract with a company called Nortel, no longer around, and they had a rule that if you're a consultant for them, you had to create a company. So I had to create a company almost by necessity, and
right on the spot.
Yeah. So I was driving, and I was going to meet first the accountant and then the lawyer, and I needed to have a name for the company, and I was thinking, let's see, I'm going to be writing software for them. Okay, and then back then, there's this new thing in town called object-oriented software, which today is just basic stuff. But so I said, okay, soft object and technology. So Soft Object Technologies Inc. So that was the original name of the company, and that's how the company got incorporated. But when I finally started to create some software, I needed a website, and the website was SOTI.net. So this, of course, naturally created an incredible amount of confusion, because some people were calling the company SOTI because they saw it SOTI.net, and some people were saying, well, I'm using some software that's called from a company called Soft Object, and then someone on some forum was, I use similar software from a different company, from a company called SOTI, and they were comparing the software. It was literally, they're talking about us, but they just knew us by different names. So eventually I just renamed the company from Soft Object Technologies Inc. to SOTI. And then a lot of those problems went away. So if you talk to SOTI employees, there is a much more spicier version of this story. But I won't tell you that story.
Well, I gotta say, so many of you ask me, hey, does SOTI stand for anything? Is there an acronym? Yeah. So you heard it here first. You know exactly how it all came to be.
Yeah, the true story is a little boring compared to the spicy version of the story, but.
Well, maybe they'll hear that one as well. But Carl, so you eventually started SOTI in 1995. What kind of happened at that point? Because I know you had these ideas and you went to the basement to make it all happen. So I love hearing about that.
Well, the truth is I didn't have many ideas. I just decided it was an interesting time, right? Because they had these PDAs and they have the bar phone, right? So with the little stubby antenna. But I could feel we were at a time where the PDA and the bar phone was going to come together. So the contract I was at, it ended, and I could have gone and found another contract or found a job. But I decided, let's go down to the basement and let's see what I can do with this technology. And of course, think about the time. So now we're in 2001, right?
Yeah.
So I incorporated, I was doing consulting for a few years, and then 2001, my contract had ended. I went to the basement and I thought, let's see what I could do. Now, everybody was wondering what the heck's going on with this guy, because I was married, I had a 1-year-old son, and they were like, what's wrong with this guy? He doesn't want to work, he's become so lazy, he's just sitting in the basement. And my mother-in-law was staying with us, my mother-in-law stayed with us, and so she would give it to me pretty much every day, right? It's like, you have to be responsible, you have a son now, and she's kind of wondering what sort of guy did her daughter marry, right? So it was an interesting time.
I love that. And, it was really interesting because for me, I was actually a customer of SOTI's before I ever knew I would work here. I bought Pocket Controller Pro for BlackBerry in university, still a customer in Salesforce today, and that was many years before I started on there. And I know that wasn't the first product that came out, so tell us about that evolution. How'd you get there?
Yeah, so Pocket Controller for BlackBerry came up some years later, but the original Pocket Controller, this is the product I developed in the basement, focused on Windows. It was a consumer product, Windows CE, Windows Mobile. So you want a story how I eventually landed in Pocket Controller?
Yeah, well, I want to know the evolution. Yeah. I came in late into the game.
Yeah, so I went to the basement, of course, thinking I want to write some code for these early devices, no idea what that was going to be. And so I was fidgeting in the basement, trying to think of ideas, and I didn't really have a good idea. So one day I downloaded this software for these early devices, and it was software to manage your passwords and things like that, right? And in those days, those devices, they didn't have a touch screen, so they had this little stylus, and you had to peck in things. So if I wanted to type in Carl, it would be C-A-R-L, so super slow. And so anyhow, I used the software I downloaded, and I put in all my my passwords, my IDs, driver's license number, all this stuff, and I was very pleased with myself. I could just look up anything really fast, and I could see it, right? And so, it took me a long time. I finished like 3 in the morning or something, putting in all this data. And then I went to sleep, and I woke up the next morning, and I pulled up the device, and all my data was gone, right? Because those early devices, they didn't have stable storage. Yep. So if you had to have it always had to have battery. If the battery died, all this data was stored in RAM, so you'd lose all your data. Yep. So I was really frustrated. I lost all this thing, and I was thinking, I'm not going to pack that in one character at a time. There's got to be a better way. And then I thought, you know what? What if I could take the screen of this device, I could mirror it on my PC, and I could use my keyboard. It's going to be at least 10 times faster. I'll use 10 fingers. And that idea was really became our original remote control, and that product was called Pocket Controller, and it was a consumer product, right? And so that was the first product we created. That's how it started.
I love that, and I know there was some evolution there as well, but I love hearing your story about SOTI's first big enterprise-grade customer. It's amazing to see the product evolve. Tell us how that came to be.
Yeah, so again, I'm still in the basement. Pocket Controller, start to make a little bit of money, not a lot of money. But what I realized is with this product, I kind of touched on a nerve. So enterprises started we were in the early days, these rugged devices, and from a company called Symbol. Symbol Technologies. Symbol eventually became Motorola, and then it eventually got bought by Zebra, that part of the business. So, think about Zebra, but the early Zebra device.
Symbol device, I remember those.
Yeah, and so they started to deploy these out to, field forces and things like that, and they needed a way to remotely troubleshoot, right? So they started using Pocket Controller, and I realized that the need for this technology was in the enterprise space, right? So I then morphed Pocket Controller and I created Pocket Controller Enterprise. So you can think of Pocket Controller Enterprise like Mobi Controller 1.0, right? And eventually we created Mobi. We just took Pocket Controller Enterprise, added a few bells and whistles, and that became Mobi Control, the original version. But anyhow, original customer, getting back to the point. So I'm sitting there in the basement one day and the phone rings and I say, hello, SOTI. And they said, and it was a British accent, right?
And a First International customer.
Yeah, First International, and the lady on the phone says, "Can I speak to sales?" I said, "Absolutely," and I put the phone down on the thing, and I picked it up. Hello, sales.
Nailed it. Nailed it.
That's my sales voice.
I love it.
And she said, "I'd like to make an order for Pocket Control Enterprise," and I said, "Okay, how many licenses?" And she said, 40,000. And I was like, I almost fell off my chair. Like people have been ordering and I might have fallen. And she said, "Is everything okay?" I said, no, I just dropped my pencil. So she says, "Okay, can you send me an invoice?" All right? And I said, "Yeah, sure, absolutely." So anyhow, so I took the order, I put the phone down, and I'm like, invoice, what the hell is that? So I went on the internet, I found a Microsoft Word document. Someone had created an invoice somewhere, and I said, okay, that's what an invoice is, okay. So I downloaded this Word document, I changed the name to be SOTI, and that was our first enterprise sale and also our first invoice.
I love that. And we heard over the last couple of days, right? Like the real strength behind a lot of software is the support that you get after the fact. And really today, SOTI has an incredible support system offering 24/7 support to our customers with many, many other different support offerings to meet a variety of needs. But tell me how our 24/7 support started, because I got to tell you, that's got to be one of my favorite stories.
Yeah, so now, again, now it's a little bit later, but we had moved into this little strip mall office, right? And it's in kind of a seedy kind of place, the office, literally a strip mall, right? So and
bars on the windows.
Yeah, it had bars on the windows. So if you can imagine this place. Anyhow, there's this customer in the U.S. and a gentleman's name was Don, really nice guy. He was one of our early Mobi Control customers, and anyhow, so I've been working on this guy for a few weeks, and I'd been talking to him, pretty much closed the sale. And then, I was thinking, I'd be able to use that invoice again here. And then he says, "Carl, there's just one more thing." And then I said, oh God, where's this going?
You thought you crushed that sale.
Yeah, I thought it was closed. I was like, what's the one more thing? And he goes, "We need 24/7 support on this, right?" And I hesitated, and he goes, "You do have 24/7 support, right?" I said, "Of course, absolutely." So then I hung up the phone, and then I had to figure out, before I hung up the phone, he said, "Well, how much does it cost, right?" And I was like, "Oh, okay," I just made up a number, and he says, "Well, that's a lot for 24/7 support." And I said, "Don, our 24/7 support is top notch."
I love that.
Anyhow, so I hung up and I was like, okay, how's 24/7 support going to work? And the way it worked is I had of course, my little bar phone, and I'd go home and beside my bed, there's a little nightstand. And I'd put it on the charger and put it on the nightstand. And this guy, Don, he would do all his upgrades, all his work in the middle of the night, because he had a 7:30 shift and he needed all the devices to be working perfectly. So any work, any upgrades, he had to be always in the night. And sure enough, 4 a.m. or something like in the morning, or 3:30 a.m. the phone would ring, and then I would look on the phone. I could see, okay, it's this guy Don again, and then I would kind of clear my voice. So it didn't
You got to get your support voice ready.
Yeah, I didn't want that sleepy voice, right? And then I'd clear my voice and I go, hello, SOTI support, and then not the sales voice. so then he would go, Carl, is it like you do night support too? I said, yeah, we were a little short, so I'm just helping out, and then and then he'd say, well, yeah, there's a problem, can you help me? And I said, Don, I'm just busy with another customer. Can I just call you back in a couple of minutes? He goes, yeah, sure. And then I'd jump out of bed, and now, of course, everybody's awake, my wife's awake, the baby's awake, so I got to get out of there for more than one reason. So I run down the stairs, I jump in the car, and then I would literally, as fast as you could go, drive to the
middle of the night,
the strip mall office, turn the lights on, yeah, it's a weird place to go, especially that time of the morning, right? Because it's this weird neighborhood. So I'd go there, turn the lights on, get in there, and then I'd say, yeah, Don, I can talk to you now. I finished with the other customer. And then he'd be okay. Then we'd sort through things, and there might be a bug or something like that, an issue. And then we had another senior developer, right? So me and this other guy's name is Jeff Lee. So we were the two guys writing all the code. And then I might have to call Jeff in, and then I'd call Jeff in. He says, okay, I'll be in there in a few minutes. And then me and Jeff would kind of work. We'd figure out the fix or whatever. We'd rebuild Moby Control, and then Don would download it, and by maybe 7:15, 15 minutes before his shift came in, we'd have the whole thing lit up and working, and that's 24/7, man.
I love that. Jeff's still at SOTI today.
Yes, Jeff's still there. He's one of our top senior developers.
I love that. Well, Carl, I got to ask, are you still jumping on support calls these days?
As you saw, we have a pretty good NPI score. I think that's pretty much because I'm not doing 20%.
Yeah, we've definitely seen our NPS scores go up.
Yeah. So.
Well, I got to say, Carl, I think you really set the bar high, and you've rooted that DNA at SOTI, and now we have industry-wide offerings, award-winning global support, and I think from what we heard, real people supporting our customers and partners, even kind of what you heard from the panel as well. I absolutely love that. But I gotta say, it's been a 30-year journey getting here, right? And I think with any journey, there must have been difficult times, bumps in the road, like really along that journey. Can you share some thoughts and kind of what were some of the bumps and lessons learned that you experienced along the way?
Well, back then when I was starting SOTI and doing all these things and going to the basement, a lot of people, I guess, telling me I'm crazy. So
your mother-in-law would agree.
Mother-in-law, lots of people. The only person who actually was supportive was my wife, because she said, she was like, okay, well, give it a shot. And everybody else was like, what are you doing? You're nuts, right? Crazy. So I fully can relate to this quote from Steve Jobs. But yeah, so now, after many years, I'm pretty sure, I'm like 70% sure I'm not crazy. So it might be 30% of the time I am crazy, but I think it's really from these crazy ideas sometimes that really, I think those are the seeds for innovation. So maybe this one thing, I hope I've instilled a little bit of that culture.
Yeah.
To not be afraid to think of new ideas and because I think that's oftentimes the crazy, bizarre ideas are the seeds for innovation. Maybe that's one learning. Another thing maybe is in the early days when you kind of feel when bad things happen, you have sort of the weight of the company on your shoulders, right? Yeah. And you kind of feel that everybody looks to you and says, you got to fix it. There's bad times. So what I realized is we've now built a pretty loyal and dedicated team, a lot of passionate people. So rather than feeling like I'm alone in those difficult times, there's always people who step up. So I feel we've really built a really strong leadership team around myself. So we're more a team, and I would say it's even way beyond that. There's so many people in this company who really do a lot of amazing work for this company. So just SOTI Sync, right? If you just take that one thing, there's many other things going on. In the last several months, a whole bunch of people just worked crazy hours and did a lot of amazing things to make the show happen. So I always, it's super inspiring to really see that work ethic, that loyalty, and that really people working from their heart to really make this company go. So that's maybe my second point.
I love that. And we heard from the Apollo story, right? We talk about craziness. Some of the best innovation comes from quite chaotic times, right? So it's amazing to see how we've gotten here. And I see the culture from the early days of SOTI to like where we are today. And I mean, I gotta say, Carl, like you really, really infused that level of passion, that level of engagement with us. And like you said, like a great sports team, people just end up stepping up. And I love that. It's been an amazing journey. I gotta say, when I first joined SOTI, it was all Windows Mobile and C, and you heard from some of our panelists earlier, so those devices might still be kicking around here and there, and some people say those would be like the actual heydays. You sell devices, the licenses are coming in, and that was pretty much the bulk of our device base was all on Windows Mobile, and Android was just coming into the scene. I think it was Android 2.1 when I joined, but we found out about Microsoft end-of-lifing that particular platform, and you found out about that transition in a really interesting way, so I'd love to hear about that.
Yeah, so it was, I don't know exactly what year it was, but it's quite some years ago, and so we found out that we had won this award. It was the Microsoft, I guess, Worldwide Partner of the Year in the enterprise space, right? So in this category for enterprise, there was 4 or 5 awards that they gave away, and we were one of the winners in one of the categories. So it's a very interesting story, but how we made it down, it was in Boston. We had to collect the award. Literally, I wouldn't get into it. It's a bit of a long-winded story. It's a fun story, but long-winded story.
For another day.
But how we got to Boston, because we found out the previous night we won the award. But anyhow, so we get to Boston, and because of this long, fun, interesting journey, we missed the award ceremony. But anyhow, there's a luncheon. There's a luncheon, and they invited these top developers from around the world, and the luncheon was hosted by Steve Ballmer, right? The then CEO of Microsoft. Anyhow, so we're at this luncheon, companies from around the world, there was us, there was a US-based company, there's a company from Russia, Czech company, etc., right? And Steve Ballmer says, guys, congratulations. You are our top enterprise development companies in the world. And, congratulations, but I have some news for you. He says, we're end-of-lifing Windows C, end-of-lifing Windows Mobile. And we have this new operating system coming out. It's going to take over the world. It's called Windows Phone. And he said, really, all the work you've done, you got to rewrite it because none of that is going to be compatible. But good news for you guys, we're telling you a few weeks earlier. We're like, what are we going to do now, right? So after the whole thing went, us developers around, we just all talked, and the message we all came out with was exactly the same. None of us are going to rewrite our code for Windows Phone. And it was pretty simple. Windows Phone had really no customers, right? It's a new operating system. We didn't know how it was going to go. But Android had already been out for a couple of years, and Android was starting to gain steam. So we all went back to our respective countries, and we actually retooled and rewrote all our code to support Android. So it's a weird story, but Microsoft in some ways it's sent us all to Android. So.
Yeah, and I mean, I think we all know how Windows Phone panned out. Anyone have a Windows Phone in the audience? No? All right. But, it was interesting because, you made that decision and we saw the big migration strategies from Windows Mobile CE to Android. And a lot of organizations have really put a lot of commitment and time to that change. And now we see how prevalent Android is across every industry, every sector. And we see how it's really been dominating a lot of many different form factors as well. So I got to say, Carl, well, you made the right decision. So yeah, it definitely takes a lot to kind of see that vision as well. But I got to say, like, this one still to this day blows my mind. 120 consecutive quarters of profitability. I mean, I don't see that anywhere else. And that seems like something that's not even possible. Like, how have we managed to achieve that?
Yeah, it's a long time. It's pretty scary streak because I'm afraid
that might be a world record.
If we make a mistake, we could miss a quarter and then we're down to zero. Yeah. So what would be the reason? So I don't think anything happens by accident. You have to really plan, and we've been. I like to think like that SOTI's built the way your grandparents would build a company, right? So the way your grandparents would build a company would be really trying to create a really good product. So if you're a person who made horseshoes, right? You'd want to make that best horseshoe, or if you're a carpenter. So I would say a lot of companies, they're based on like just making a bunch of money. I think our foundation has always been, let's create a good product, right? And then the other things will happen, right? And to create a good product, there's thousands of good decisions, and you have to hope that I don't know, better than 80% of them go the right way. But to give you some examples, a heavy focus on research. So we never did take any VC money or those sort of things, because I always felt that's contrary to building a long-term vision. Because if you bring a VC to the table, that guy, he's going to invest, and you got to say, hey, for me to do this research might take 6 years, 8 years, 10 years. And he's going to say, no, we'd want to exit in 3 years.
Yeah, I'm out in 3, I want my money back.
Yeah, so you can't do anything and that's why we didn't ever take VC. We said we're going to only grow the company with the profits we have in the company. But it's going to allow us to have a consistent long-term view of the company. So we did a lot of long-term investment in research. We still have a lot of long-term investment in research. And you see some of those investments really that are in the product, even at this SOTI 6. Yeah. So a lot of the work we did for Find Device comes from a lot of research. Live View comes from a lot of research. So long-term investments, thinking long-term, and into the future.
Yeah, I mean, I love that, right? I mean, I've been here for 14 years. I mean, I see the growth, commitment, and innovation we have with every single product release. Like, you can see so many features. You've talked about some of them in your keynote. Everybody out here has heard about it over the last couple of days. And I mean, it's really been amazing to see this level of evolution. And a lot of these features come from requests from our customers and our partners as well, right? So you guys are at the forefront of driving a lot of this innovation. And I mean, I have to say though, like, looking back at all of my years, all the different product releases, I can't ever remember us bringing out so many features in a single release, and specifically some really big ticket items in 2026. Like, what happened this year? Like, what made all this come together?
Yeah, so sometimes a lot of research kind of matures at around the same time. I would say, yeah, this is an example. I would say we have a lot of other research that's actually pretty close to coming. Sort of like if you build a sports team, they have, I'm a hockey fan, so I guess it applies to anything. But you have a farm team, right? And you're building the next generation of talent, right? So research is like that. You're building in the labs, in the top secret James Bond labs. You're building a lot of stuff for the future. We also did things like we brought on, in the last few years, a lot of really young talent in our different offices around the world. And now some of that talent really has 3-4 years experience under their belts. So we're now beginning to harvest like the output of all that long-term investment that we put in. So yeah, pretty cool. It's almost we have another problem.
Nice.
You have to figure out how to really explain all this new technology in an effective way, because this year we have a ton of stuff.
Oh, I mean, yeah, I mean.
And I imagine a lot of the folks here might be a little bit overwhelmed with all the new stuff that we brought in.
Yeah, there's a lot to take back, and I got to tell you, this year, Carl, with our knowledge transfers, it is the most amount of knowledge transfers I've ever been through for Excite alone across my 14 plus years here. So definitely a lot of things to be excited about. And I know me and you already talking about 26.1, so it's going to be quite amazing. So I want to shift gears a little bit. In episode 1 of SOTI TV, you took us through the modern management landscape and really how the EMM and the MDM industry has truly grown. And you yourself have been a pioneer in the industry and over the past 30 years, right? Like, so there's been so much change, so much evolution. Today, there's a lot of EMM players out there, right? There's, I think, over 270. Some are super cheap. And what are your thoughts on really the future of the EMM industry?
Yeah, so it's a good question. I think there's sort of this, if I were to break it into 2 broad groups, I think there's probably many more subgroups, but there's some companies who do sort of, you might say, more traditional or EMM, so they can do those traditional things. Maybe they can push out software and updates, and they can do remote control. Maybe they can do some lockdown and a few other things. And that's the traditional one. That's sort of the basic staple food of EMM or MDM. What we've done is we've actually added a lot of other things, right? And so we don't have a good name for it. We're still trying to think of what that name should be. So we're using this phrase modern EMM, but we've added a lot of other things. You've seen that you've seen here at the show. We have added things like a ton of analytics.
Yeah.
Like I don't know, we got, I don't know how many dashboards we have. We probably like 15, 20 dashboards.
Yeah. Dashboard, sub-dashboard.
And analytics, live view, we have the find device policy, we have Stella, we have so many other things, right? Yeah. And this takes us into a completely new category of software that's widely different from that basic EMM. And I think it's really important because what's going on in mobility? Mobility, when it started, people did some basic things with it. Now, there's complex operations that really need mobility and that are being run. And you heard our previous panel there. These guys are using mobility as key strategic part of defense systems and things like that, right? So people are doing, crazy things. I mean, not crazy, but crazy is innovation, right?
So crazy is innovation.
Innovative things, and pushing mobility to new levels. And I think people are still discovering even today new things to do with mobility. So there's a need for much more. There's need to understand. There's need for visualization. There's need to really understand what's happening remotely. The trick with mobility is at HQ, they're somewhere in a city, in a town, and your stuff is being used out there, and you need to understand. So we realized this many years ago, and we thought there's a lot of data that we have access to, and if we also get the right type of data, we can bring much more analysis, much more insight, much more knowledge, know-how, and people will be able to use that insight and do more stuff with it, right? So that's where we are at. We're really harvesting the power of data to do different things, and we harvest it in different ways, right? It's all fed by data.
Yeah.
In some cases the data is moving into the analytics charts. In some cases we bring up the data with visualization and those sort of things in live view. In other cases we're taking the data and we are feeding it to the AI engine, like the Stellas of the world, and to do other things. But really it's the power of data that we began to recognize and think about a long time ago. And as much as we've done, I think there's tons more to be done in this space.
And I mean, and it's interesting, you talk about live view coming out, we talk about visualization, but back in 2016 at SOTI Sync, you were talking about live view data visualization right there. I gotta say, you don't look a day older. Look at that.
I don't know. It seems to me there's a few more gray hairs here now.
But yeah, I mean, tell us a little more. That's amazing.
Yeah, so some of these things, ideas we have, it takes a long time, right? So 2016, I was talking about a concept so that's our time machine there. It's supposed to be 2016 version of it, right? I think yours is a little better now. But anyhow, that was just a slide just to show you this idea of visualizing where things are, and to be able to go back and forth in time and that sort of thing. It took us, what is 2016?
Yep.
So we just brought that out 2 years ago, right?
3 years ago, yeah.
Yeah, so it took us 7 years to bring out version 1. I would have thought if you had asked me on that day, I would have thought we'd get it done in 2-3 years. But sometimes things take longer, but it's a long-term vision that I think is maybe what differentiates this company maybe compared to other companies.
Yeah, and I love that, right? We talk about data. I think data really allows us to make better decisions. It's training, the future of AI. It allows us, as you said, to really know what's going on outside the organization. How are the users using the devices? And, we talked about what the last 10 years brought in a couple of different areas and where we're heading next, and most importantly, how we're interpreting that data to be kind of the cornerstone of a lot of these innovations, right? So I'd love to get more of your thoughts around, I know me and you talked about this concept of dynamic thinking, right? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so right now we're showing you insights based on the data, right? So even if you talk to Stella now and when we release Stella, you're going to ask Stella a question and Stella's going to give you the answer, right? But when I think of dynamic thinking, it's how humans behave, right? So we are we're sort of like sensors, right? We're absorbing things through our senses, and then we can make decisions, and oftentimes decisions in real time, right? So that's how I see where we want to get to in the future. That's where we're trying to get to, where if you like this new type of you talk about 24/7 support, but
yeah.
This new type of 24/7 support where our systems are dynamically absorbing data, asking for new data if it needs new data, and reacting to those situations and monitoring your systems and tuning them in real time 24/7. So much like, if you have a whole bunch of humans watching over the data in your systems in real time, right?
Yeah.
And making those adjustments. So that's what I think is the future, and I think we're right there. We are pretty close to be able to do that kind of dynamic thinking in kind of the software we build.
Yeah, 24/7 support and automated remediation. So sounds great. So, today we look at, and it sounds like we're well on our way to offering our customers really a class of solutions that's well above and beyond what traditional EMM looks at or what it does today. And, we're delivering strategic value, we're delivering automation, as you even heard from our panelists before. And I think most of all, we're really getting a lot of valuable insights from it. So it's been amazing to see, that continued growth and that continued innovation. But let's take it a step further, right? When we look at the future of the mobile industry as a whole and some of the key verticals that we operate in, right? We see AI chipsets becoming more prevalent on mobile devices, and we see a lot of innovations happening even kind of on the device side. But what are the key things you believe we need to think about as that's gonna really impact the mobile industry over the next few years?
You mean in terms of AI and AI?
Yeah, AI chipsets, where we're kind of seeing Apple Intelligence, Gemini, Galaxy AI, all these kind of different things that we're starting to see become more prevalent on the device side itself.
Well, so there's AI chipsets that are being used in mobile hardware and things like that. So the thing is, I think you'd need standardization, first of all, on AI chipsets across mobile devices, because people don't want to write their code, for each type of device, and they want the flexibility to choose hardware. So, and if I think about AI needs a lot of horsepower. So, to do crazy things with AI, you need you need those big servers, you need those big GPUs, and that's all sitting in the cloud, right? So, I think there'll be greater steps because I know individual hardware manufacturers, they're adding the AI chip here and there, but we don't want to be locked to a Samsung device or something like that. We want flexibility. We want to choose the best hardware in the next hardware refresh. So I think the greater potential is by using AI in the cloud. There, you're going to have you're able to size your servers as big as you want. You're able to get as many GPUs as you want. We have, virtualization and things like that. So I think that's going to be the horsepower for the future of mobility and many other sectors. Leveraging AI and the big think that you can get in the cloud.
I love that.
I think there might be certain edge conditions where they might use the AI device-side chipsets. There might be specific applications that need them, but I think for the vast majority, it's going to be we're going to have to leverage the big machine in the cloud.
So it sounds like there's opportunity there, but you don't really see organizations running out there and grabbing these new AI-enabled devices today.
There might be specific niche examples. But think about when you go to the cloud, like you're going to have faster and faster networks, right? So the network is going to become, as fast as it is, it's going to become way faster.
Yep.
It's going to be way more robust, way more reliant. We will have networks like connecting every part of the earth. Elon has his mesh around the earth, so even in the middle of a desert, you'll be able to have data. And when you think about data, right, there's a set of data to make that new insight, to make your device do more, your app do more, that's coming from the device. But then you take it to the cloud, and then you combine it with the data that lives there, and that cloud is connected to the rest of the world. So it has access to the world's data to crunch stuff, in the future in relatively real time and to deliver a powerful new insight. So when you get to the cloud, like there's crazy things that become possible.
Well, Carl, I got to say, it definitely sounds there's a lot of opportunity. I think we learned a ton over the last couple of days, so definitely a lot to take back. And I think what we heard today is pretty clear, right? Mobility management isn't just about devices anymore. It's about enabling people, ideas, and businesses to move faster, move smarter, and across every single industry, like mobility is really shaping the way we work, the way we connect, the way we innovate. And I think the organizations, as you rightly mentioned, is the organizations that are going to lean into this are the ones that are going to lead the future, I think, right? I think there really is a lot of streamlining can happen. So I'm very, very excited for that. Thank you for joining us. Thank you to everyone. Please join me in giving Carl another big round of applause. Thank you, Carl. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay,